All right. So, hello, Valerie. We're just getting things set up in our in-person meeting room right now.
Okay, no worries. Just let me know when you're ready to go.
I think I should be able to. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we are good to go now. I'm gonna introduce you. Oh, let me pause the background music from from some movies.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn the correct lights on and not the one where like Christian. Remember I turned the light off the switch? I was like, do not touch, and I was like, oops. I touched it.
But welcome everyone. We're glad to have you. Yeah, just like dim it. So we're gonna take a pause from our normal composing and tech kind of meetings to talk about some business stuff, which is really important for I think no matter what you do, to at least know a little bit about business. And with film scoring and film licensing and all of the things around that, it can get a little more tricky than most musicians. So today we have our wonderful Valerie Lovely. She's actually a professor here. I took her for intro to music business and advanced legal aspects, or just legal aspects, sorry. Um, I think she's amazing. She's really, really, really personable. Um, and without further ado, I will let you take it away, Valerie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you? Yay. I get the lucky thing. I don't have to wear a mask because I'm at home, so I sympathize with you all in the classroom. So, in addition to teaching at Berklee, I'm also a practicing music attorney. And so I work with clients that are, doing scores for films or doing like a sync licensing thing for, whatever it happens to be. So I do have the insights into the deals behind the scenes. So before, I could talk about anything really. So I thought I'd just kind of open it up to you all first and see what you want to know, because we just have a limited time together. So I'd much rather let you all direct what you want to know. I have some slides if you want to go that direction, if that's what you want, but I'll throw it out to you all. What do you want to know?
Anyone?
What's the deal with contracts?
So, yeah, just contracts, going over contracts and how that works.
Sure. Well, okay. Step one, contracts are negotiable. Like, just know that straight off the bat. I was a film scoring major at Berklee a million years ago. And I remember there was I don't know if it was coming from the professors or ourselves, but I remember that the strong perception in my mind was, I'm not going to hardly make anything. Who am I? I'm tiny. I have no clout. If they offer me something, I'll say yes, or they'll take it away. That was sort of my mentality when I was a film scoring major. And now I'm older, I'm a lawyer, I'm looking back on that and going, oh gosh, I was so stupid. I didn't know. So what I want you all to understand is that if someone's contacting you and they want you to write the music for them, you have a lot of value. They want you to write the music. So you can negotiate, you can ask for compensation. You do have some power in the negotiation to ask for things. And the other thing, besides asking for things that I want you all to really understand, is that you can ask for anything. If you don't ask, the answer is absolutely not. But if you ask, it might be a no, but it might be a yes, and that's awesome. Or what you might get instead is a yes, but, or a no, but. And that's where they're willing to give you part of what you're asking for, but maybe not all of it. And you're going to have a discussion and get to a point where you feel comfortable and they feel comfortable. And that's much further than accepting the contract as is without asking for anything. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the basics. Now, for the actual contracts, it really depends what you're doing and who you're working with. So a lot of you, as you're starting out, it's probably going to be smaller projects, probably independent filmmakers. And I can tell you right off the bat, the last thing that 99.9% of independent filmmakers are thinking about is music. And the very last they're thinking about is setting aside money for the music. They should be thinking about it first thing, because music's what's going to make or break it. But that's not how they're thinking. They're filmmakers. And so they're throwing every penny they can find into the film itself. Now, what that means for you all is that when they come to you looking for the music, they don't have a lot of money in a lot of cases. So that's where you understanding the business can really help you out. So the typical thing is they've got just a little bit of money left over and they want everything from you. They're going to give you the film and do some spotting with you. Sometimes they don't even know what that is, but you guys do, right? You've covered that in class. But you're going to be given the film and expected to add music onto it. And they don't care how it gets there, but that's going to be your job. Now, do you guys know, have you heard the term, the film being locked? Is that something you all have covered in class? See a couple of heads nodding.
For the most part, we have a lot more younger semester students in here.
Oh, okay, so I'll just say everything then. So the film being locked, that's an important phrase. That's something that you want to know that is happening. So it means that the filmmakers have done all their filming and all their editing and they're done. This is going to be the film. And now you can add music to it, knowing that you're adding music to the finished film. Now, what I've been observing with some beginning filmmakers is they keep changing their mind. So the film is locked. The film score adds the music. And then they unlock it and they add scenes, they edit scenes, they do, and then like, oh, we need new music. And the film score is like, wait, I did that project. I did my job. I added the music and you're not supposed to unlock it. It was locked means locked, but it happens. And so that's something when you are entering into a contract, make sure that there's language in your deal that says filmmaker will deliver a locked film to you, or at least locked scenes. At least you can do that. But once it's been locked and you've added the music to it, your job on that part of it is done. If they unlock it for whatever reason and now want you to write new music or edit the cues that you already did to fit the new scene, you should be paid extra for that. It's a separate deal. And having language in there that says that is kind of important. I have a poor client that was doing a project for a friend and they unlocked it 3 times. So he's pretty much scored this film 3 times now. Now, they didn't have an agreement because it was friends, and that happens sometimes too. And he's doing him a favor, but by the 3rd time, my client was a little bit annoyed because it was wasting his time, wasting his resources. So that's something, have an agreement, even when it's your friend that's the filmmaker, and make sure that when the film is locked, it doesn't get unlocked. And if it does, you get compensated extra for rewriting something that you already did. Okay. What else with contracts? Oh, so typically for big projects where everybody knows what they're doing, like a feature film, like some of you might score a feature film or like a big budget production. Now, those people know what they're doing and they actually have a budget for the music, which is very nice. They're going to expect you to create all the music as what's called a work made for hire. And that means you will not own any copyrights that you create in that work. They're going to own all the copyrights, period. And that's normal for film scoring on big productions. As you get your name out there and as you build your reputation, then you can start negotiating on that and try to get some ownership interests in the project, try to get some royalties, try to get some percentages of revenue. But starting out, you're going to get paid a negotiated flat fee, and it's going to be a work made for hire. So no copyright ownership, but you're going to get paid. And that fee, usually you'll get an amount up front, and then it'll be divided up into payments with the ultimate payment on delivery of everything. So that's pretty typical. How much you're going to get paid, that's really going to depend. It's going to be all over it really comes down to, how big is the project? How big is the budget? There's going to be a difference in the budget for music for like a biopic versus a biopic that's not a musician versus like a blockbuster sci-fi special effects type film. There's going to be a big difference in the range. But like I said, it's all negotiable, and having an attorney negotiate your contracts for you is going to be very helpful. Now, for indie projects, those are more negotiable for sure. So, especially because they don't often understand the music industry. They went to film school, but I don't think they had many classes on film music, because most of the filmmakers that are offering my clients contracts really don't know what they're doing. And so what that means for you is that you can obtain things that you would never get with a feature film like, Lionsgate or something like that, like a big film company. So some of the things that we've been able to do with independent filmmakers that may surprise you is, one is like I have one client that we've had him, he's scored a few films right now, and each of his contracts has him owning 100% of the composition copyrights and 100% of the sound recording copyrights. So he owns all the copyrights for the music he writes for the film. We also have it that he has the exclusive right to release the soundtrack whenever he feels like it. And then we also have a requirement that they provide him with artwork from the film for him to use with his soundtrack. So that's pretty rare. That's not something that's going to happen with people that know what they're doing, but with independent filmmakers that don't really understand how this all works, what they're looking for is music by a competent film score that fits within their budget. And so we're able to get these types of deals with them, and they're happy to get my client to write the music, and my client's happy to own his copyrights and be able to release the soundtracks, and it works out great. Now, the thing you want to make sure that you have in there is sometimes these independent films end up doing really, really well, and bigger film companies want to pick them up and distribute them under their umbrella, not unlike major record labels seeing a self-releasing artist and going, wow, we want to release your last EP under our umbrella, and we're all going to make lots of money because we're going to put our marketing power, reach more people, make more money. It's kind of like that idea. So what you want to make sure is if you can get that deal where you get to own your copyrights in the score that you write and the right to release a soundtrack, that you put something in there that takes into account if a bigger fish comes along and wants to get that film, that you put something that says that you agree to negotiate the terms in good faith of your score being distributed by the bigger company. What this does for you is it allows for an extra payment for the actual use that's going to happen with this bigger distributor, because there's going to be some money going into the hands of the filmmaker. Why not go into your hands as well? So you agree to negotiate in good faith the terms of using your score as they redistribute it through this bigger company, and it might be an extra payment for you. So that's something that you want to do too. Any questions so far? I've thrown a lot at y'all.
Actually, in the back.
Can you talk about ownership with TV series?
So the question was asking about ownership with TV series. Also, I think it might even be good to briefly go over basics of copyrights if anyone in the room doesn't know like how that works or what types there are.
Okay. So with copyrights, when you write music, there's two copyrights involved. There's a copyright in the music that you wrote, like the score that you wrote. And then when it gets recorded, every recording gets its own copyright. So when I was talking about my client owning all the copyrights, he was owning the composition rights and the sound recording rights, both. So that's, step one is understanding how those work. Now with TV, it depends what kind of TV show it is and how the music is being used, because there's a difference between writing the score for the TV show and having one of your songs used in a TV show. So if it's a song that's being used in a particular scene of a TV show, then what they're doing is they're licensing your composition and sound recording rights to fix your music in that particular scene permanently. So with that, it's a one-time fee for them to put your music in that scene. But with all of these deals, one of the things you want to be aware of is that there are different types of royalties that come from airing like a TV show. Every time the TV show airs, it's considered what's called a public performance. And there's a company like ASCAP or BMI that you sign up with and you file your cue sheets or your songs. And every time that episode airs, they're going to put money into your account. So it's pretty sweet. So that's one thing. If it's a song that you've given them permission to use in a particular scene, every time that episode airs, you'll get paid by the broadcaster. But in order to get paid, you have to belong to a PRO. So all of you that are writing original music, you need to belong to a PRO like ASCAP or BMI, so that when your music is broadcast, whether it's in a television commercial or a TV show or anything like that, you have everything in place that those royalties can be collected. So that's kind of important. So there's like two sources of revenue for TV. There's the fee you get paid for your music to be stuck in the scene, and that's a permanent one-time payment. And then there's the public performance royalties. Every time the episode airs, that you will get paid. So that's the two sides of that. Now, if you are writing the score for the TV show and that's your job, typically that you're going to be like an employee. It's your job to write the scenes. And so that you're typically going to have an employment contract that says that everything that you write is a work made for hire, and the series owns all the rights and you just get paid, and that's it. So one of the things that you want to try to negotiate for that is to be able to retain that ability to collect your public performance royalties. You don't have to own copyright to receive royalties. So that would be a negotiating point. Okay. Do mixing engineers and mastering engineers own copyrights as well in the music? No, they do not, because they haven't created anything. So copyright protects the expression of creativity. And although mixing engineers and mastering engineers would argue that what they do is creative, and it is, it's not copyrightable. It's not creating original content. So it wouldn't be considered copyrightable content, so it would not. Other royalties for scores for theme park attractions such as Spaceship Earth. Music that's performed at amusement parks, those are public performances. And so like actually public performance is very broad. So anytime your composition, like the music that you wrote, is being performed in a public space, like an amusement park or a restaurant or a gym or any place really, or television or elevators, those are public performances. And so you are entitled to royalties for the composition side, not the sound recording, but the composition side. So a theme park would need to pay blanket licensing fees for the music that's being publicly performed. And in theory, you should get paid for it. Now, practically speaking, they don't always catch every single public performance. You're more likely to get paid for like a television show that's airing or a movie that's airing on television or something like that, because there's cue sheets involved. And that's going to be kind of the information gathered in your contract. They're going to ask you, which PRO are you with? What's your name with your PRO? And do you have a publishing company, which you should absolutely do. And you can self-publish. What's your publishing company name? So they're going to gather that information in the contract to use your music, so that when they create a cue sheet that travels along with the episode, the broadcaster submits the cue sheet to the PRO, who then gets it and figures out what the value of the public performance was and puts the money into your account. That was a lot. Did that make sense?
I think we got a yes on that.
Okay, it's tricky. You're kind of coming excited. I know that you all have different levels of understanding of copyright law, and so I mean there's a lot to it. So I just covered we covered this in a couple of weeks worth of like reading lots of pages and covering it in class, and I've just like covered it in a minute. So I understand if this is a lot. Mostly what I hope that you're doing is just sort of jotting things down to look into later on.
Sounds good. We'll go on to another question then. I know Lauren, you had one.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I just had a question, since we're talking about copyright, about kind of like the specifics with that. So like, I guess one thing I was curious about, especially when you talked about mix engineers and stuff, I worked on a film, it was a feature-length Sundance film, and we were doing like an ending credit song that we had somebody record in Pro Tools for us and then mix it in Pro Tools, and we had licensed the song and everything at that point. And when the time came to get the project, I needed to get the Pro Tools project and actually submit it to the movie's mix engineer wanted the project, and the mix engineer felt that while they delivered me the MP3s and the waves, that they didn't feel that sending me the project was something that they were obligated to do, because they felt that it was like going against like their creative reputation. And so I wanted to ask about like the specifics when it comes to ownership. Does that include like the entire like platform that the project was created in, or was he right in just giving me waves? If you know what I'm trying to say, like does ownership extend through like the actual project itself, like in a DAW?
I'm not sure I completely understand what you're asking. Are you referring to like the film editor that was adding the music to the scene and he wouldn't give you the music in the scene?
If I'm gonna like simplify it, so because I composed a song and it was recorded in Pro Tools, would I also own the Pro Tools project or just like the exporting that comes out of that project?
Okay, I'm with you. Sorry, that was much clearer. So there are the two copyrights. So you would own the composition copyright. And it sounds like, I mean, Pro Tools, it's tricky because they're not actually recording the sound recording. There's no creativity in it. It's just taking what you wrote and creating a recording in the computer. There's an argument for that sound recording in that situation belonging to the person that entered it in. So in situations like that, normally what you would do is, if you're hiring that person to do it, you would have them sign an agreement saying that you will own the sound recording, that they're just mechanically, getting it into Pro Tools, it's choosing the sounds, that kind of stuff. That's sort of, having that agreement saying that you would own it would solve the problem. But because, I guess arguably you could argue, that makes sense. You could argue that choosing the voices, having the computer do the dynamics, using a DAW, you're kind of being creative. So there might be an argument for creativity on the sound recording on that side. Normally when you're taking a sound recording that like musicians did and mixing it and mastering it, there's no creativity there. But if you're the one actually choosing this violin over that violin sound from the library, or this percussion sound over that percussion, now you're bringing in a level of creativity, which is different from someone taking like a recording of an orchestra performing your cue and then just mixing and mastering it. Do you see the distinction?
Kind of like ownership came in with that, just because it makes a lot of sense, obviously, that the composer would own like the music that comes out of the DAW, but like what about what's in the DAW itself? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it really, copyright wise, we're dividing it between the composition and the sound recording. So your composition is 100% clearly yours. And what the DAW is doing is just taking that composition, and if they aren't adding anything to it, if they're just literally taking the notes and making a sound to it, that would be the sound recording side. Now, this is where it gets kind of messy, is like if you're talking about like, pop or rap or hip hop, where we're taking this, you've got the producer who's creating tracks, and then you've got a songwriter writing a song, and there's that blurred line between the writers. The writers are now multiple people adding different layers into the final product, and that's where we have creativity on both sides. But it sounds like what you were talking about is you wrote the cue, someone else created the sound recording. Is that accurate?
Everything was written by me, and the session was originally created by me.
Yeah, so yeah, so they didn't add any melodic elements. They didn't add any songwriting to it. They just got a recording for you. Yes. So if you don't have an agreement that says all the work they do for you is a work made for hire, so you own the sound recording, then they would own the sound recording. So that would kind of make sense.
I definitely learned from that experience, like even when you're doing like low profile work that might seem low profile, even if it's in between like classmates at this point, it's really important to come to sign agreements. And I learned that when this kind of situation came up. And you don't think that, you think contracts will be like when you graduate, like when I graduate, I'll sign contracts, but you really should start now.
Absolutely. And what you explained was a little bit different from the stories I get during my office hour, but it's the same idea. It's just not a film score. It's a songwriter, a songwriting performer is working with a producer on campus, and they bring their song into the studio. The producer records it. They didn't add anything to it. They just recorded it, which is great. I mean, that's, awesome. The agreement is we're both students. There's no money changing hands. You can use the song in your portfolio. I'll use it in mine. It'll be examples of what we can do. Everything's good until it isn't, because oftentimes what ends up happening is then the producer realizes this is a really good song. This could really go somewhere. And then they talk to somebody and they learn about copyrights. And then they realize, oh gosh, I should be getting paid for this. I should be getting royalties on this. I should get ownership. And then things go kind of sideways. They haven't even given you the masters yet, but they've already created this huge issue. And yeah, having a contract up front that just says, this is what we've agreed upon, is super, super helpful. And it doesn't have to be convoluted either. Like, it's not something that I would need to write for you as an attorney. Just you all writing down in plain language, I'm writing this music. I own this music 100%. I'm having you record it. You're going to record it, but I will own all the copyrights when you're finished. Something like that. Just makes things really clear, and both sides sign it. Getting into more detail, if you're paying them, you would add that in. If you're not paying them, you just put that in. If you anticipate that there may be some royalties down the line, you could say in the agreement, I'll give you a percentage, this percentage of royalties if they happen in the future. You can put anything you want into the contract as long as it doesn't break any laws. But the idea is to be really clear up front. And mostly it's just taking those conversations that you've already had and writing them down and signing them. And that is better than nothing, for sure. Memories get bad, especially if your song is good or your music is good. People start, thinking up ways to own more, get more, things like that.
Okay, I also had a question and kind of more stuff that you could talk about. And it was about getting work. Because I know a lot of us, even if we're younger or graduating soon, are like, okay, we know all these gigs that we technically should be getting, but how do we get them? And so stuff that could relate to is marketing, because not a lot of us feel like film scoring is different, because it's like, oh, we don't have to do a lot of marketing. So if you talk about getting work and potentially more stuff on marketing.
Well, that's a little bit outside of what I do. I'm the lawyer, so my clients already got the work. I'm just looking over their contracts, but I can share how they got the work. And a lot of times it's reputation. That goes so much further than you possibly imagine. So your reputation on campus for being a nice person who's easygoing, who shows up on time and delivers on their promises, that's the thing you should be working on right now. If that doesn't describe you, work on that. Your reputation is going to be the first thing that leads to a job, because step one, have a good reputation. Step two, tell every single person you meet at Berklee and any place else exactly what your dreams are as far as your career goes. So how many of you know like what your dream would be, like what kind of projects you would like to work on? Like how many of you, your dream job would be writing video game music? Any of you? Okay, couple. How many you really want to get like a full-time job writing for a couple of TV series? Any of you? That's okay. How about feature films? Bring that on. You want to be, or those huge series like Game of Thrones type series. Anyone want to do those things? So the clearer that you can be about what you want to do, and then tell everybody you meet, this is what I want to do. My dream is writing like, and give examples of what you want to write. Give names of people that you would love to do the job they're doing. The more people that you talk with and that connect you with what you want to do, the more likely it is that when they hear about an opportunity, they're going to think of you and they're going to put your name forward. And believe it or not, most opportunities, that's exactly how they happen. Someone's looking for somebody, and somebody that they know brings forward a name. And I trust you. You've given me this name. I'll give it a try. It's much better than going with a complete stranger, because if you're vouching for this person, I'll give it a chance. So many opportunities are going to come that way. And I know that that's not like, okay, you call Bob and you tell, it's not as clear as you would like it to be, but that's the reality. So it's building your reputation, letting as many people as you can know what your dream job is, and then just keep writing. Take every project you can possibly get. Sometimes it might be those small projects where you won't get paid anything, but if you can get your name up there in big letters, film score by, that's huge, right? That goes on. That's a project you did. You got the credit for. That's going towards that dream. Your professors in the film scoring department, make sure they know you. It's so easy at Berklee to just go to your classes, do what you're asked, and then leave. But you need to be developing relationships with the people that can help you. So if you haven't spoken with every faculty member in the film scoring department and explain to them what your career objectives are, and if they haven't heard your music yet, if you're in your first or second semester, you've got some time, but don't get into your third semester without having met with every single faculty member in the film scoring department, having them know who you are and what you want to do when you get out of Berklee. That's going to make all the difference in the world. How many of you have met all of the film scoring faculty members? Not many hands, right? Don't worry about it. You're in early semesters and there's time, but it's important. Guess what? Most of those people that are in the faculty of the film scoring department, they've scored film, right? That's why they got the job. They've got connections. So talk with them. If you present yourself as a responsible student, you show up to class 5 minutes early every time, prepared, you turn in your assignments early or at least on time by deadline, you listen to what they say, you ask amazing questions in class, all of those actions show your work ethic. So you might not think about it. You might be thinking, I'm just going to crawl out of bed, get myself to class, whatever. But you're demonstrating to the people who can open doors for you that you have a good work ethic and you can be trusted to deliver what you're asked. So it's something to think about. So there's no magic path, but those are some actions that you can take from your first semester at Berklee that are going to lead to opportunities. Now, ask your professors, and I'm sure that, within this club that you all have some organizations. There are a lot of companies that put out calls for music for film projects. And with those, you just want to make sure that you closely read what they're asking for and give them exactly what they're asking for. It's a big mistake to let your ego get in the way. So if someone says, we're looking for songs for this upcoming vampire werewolf movie, but we don't want any songs that talk about vampires or werewolves. We just want that kind of vibe. Now, you want to give them what they're asking. You don't want to be like, yeah, but they haven't heard my vampire werewolf song. I'm going to submit it because they're going to love it. That's really risky. You're going against what they're asking for. Your song might be great, but you're already starting on the wrong foot. They told you what they wanted, and you thought you knew better than they did. That's not really a very good way to go, and it doesn't tend to be looked at favorably. So be careful that when you're submitting to opportunities, first, follow the directions, but second, make sure your recording is the best quality recording possible as well. That's going to make a real difference in opportunities like that.
I think we got a lot of good things from that, actually. Thank you.
Oh,
Another one, I think there was also another question in the chat as well.
yep.
Yeah.
The benefits of owning the copyright to a sound recording. It really just comes down to the more ownership that you have in your projects, the more autonomy that you have, and you also have that value of it. So like my client that owns both the composition and the sound recordings for all of the cues that he provides to the films that he scores, he's able to then, because he owns them and he controls them, he's able to release the soundtracks. That's something he doesn't have to ask anybody permission for. He doesn't have to pay anybody. He owns those, so he can do what he wants with them. So that's the real value with that. Now, in reality, in a lot of the projects that you're working on, if they know what they're doing, they're going to want the ownership. They're going to want you to do it as what's called a work made for hire. Work made for hire, all that means is you were agreeing from the moment that you create things that you will not own the copyrights in them. The person that's paying you under the terms of the contract, they are going to be the owner of the copyrights. And just to take a step back, for copyrights, they're super easy to create. All you need is something original, fixed in a tangible way. So when you've written something and recorded it, or written something on manuscript paper, at that exact moment, you get the copyrights. What a work made for hire means is you've agreed in a contract that when you create something that's original and fixed in a tangible way, you've agreed on the contract not to own the copyrights. You've agreed that the person who's hired you is going to own them instead. And that's very standard in the film scoring industry. Except, like I said, if you're negotiating with an independent filmmaker and you can get the ability to own your copyrights, that's the exception.
Awesome. JP.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Actually, legal aspects a year ago, and it was fantastic.
Think-
Everyone's like that. My question is, I think a lot of us, like, even in our first years out of Berklee, will be possibly creating an LLC and having a scoring service audio company, type of thing where you navigate the freelance world for all of it. So, do you think there's value in writing a business plan, if that's your goal, even now in college? I know it can be like a very daunting task, some of them are up to 30 pages, but just lining up your vision for the first couple of years at Berklee, if your idea is to kind of work for yourself and navigate, the network of filmmakers from there. Do you see the value in a business plan, and what do you think are elements that make a good one?
Yeah, so JP, that's a big one. Business plans are super valuable if you're going to be starting a business. Some people make the mistake in thinking that the only reason for a business plan is when you're seeking investment, like from a banker or an investor, and they ask to see your business plan. So you put one together to show them, so they give you money. But really, a business plan is more like a map. You're looking at all the aspects of putting your business together, and it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. But you're looking at things like, what are my talents? What are my strengths? But also, what are my weaknesses? And what is my vision for this business? What's it going to offer? And then you got to do some market research. Who else is doing this type of business? How do they run their business? What makes mine different? Or if it's identical and there aren't any differences, is there space for my business, or do the existing businesses have all the business? What's going to make me different? And it's really being honest and looking at these aspects. And then you're looking at the financials. How much money do I need to start this business? Is there equipment that I need to purchase? Software, hardware, furniture, those sorts of things. What about marketing? Do I need to get a website, register a domain, get hosting? Those all have price tags on them. So you want to be really honest with the numbers, and you want to think about all the numbers. So there's going to be kind of two broad categories. They're going to go into the one-time costs, like the things you need to purchase to start your business, and then the ongoing costs, things like your monthly hosting service, or whatever that's going to be. So you need to know the numbers. What's it all going to cost? And then you got to go, do I have the money to make this work? How much do I need to get this started and to maintain it? And then the hardest part, where's the revenue going to come in from? How much can I expect to bring in? How am I going to price my services? How do I get that? And so doing research into what other people are doing and the price ranges, and figuring out how you're going to set the prices for your services, and then playing with all the numbers until they start looking like a plan. Like, okay, I've got this much money. After I buy all the things I need to buy to start the business, I'm going to need this much money coming in a month in order to break even, and this much to start making a profit. Now, there's going to be a period of time where probably I'm not going to be breaking even. Do I have enough money to pay the bills during that time period to give myself time to really build the business up? Those are some of the things a business plan are going to help you with. The last thing, there's a lot more to it, and there's lots of great books. You can go to the library and get lots of great books that tell you, step by step how to create a business plan. But one of the most important things is, don't see it as a one-time document when you're starting your business. What you want to do is you want to be able to see this as a map for your business. You want it to include goals and timelines. And that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, I think I've got enough money for this to go for this much time before I start making a profit. But you want to look at that business plan on a regular basis and look at the numbers. And if you had a goal to reach a certain point at 6 months, and you realize, if I get to that goal at 6 months, I'm going to be pretty busy. I'm probably going to need to bring somebody in to handle scheduling my time, handling invoicing and collecting money, and doing the administrative stuff. So if you have that planned out for 6 months down the line, but 3 months in, you're really successful and you're already getting to that point. If you keep looking at your business plan, when you're approaching that 3-month point and you're at your 6-month goals, you just move everything down and you go, oh, I need to hire somebody. I've got the money now, and it triggers that. And that allows you to strategically plan for your own success and not let things get away from you. So business plans, oh my gosh, yes. Spend some time on that. It's going to take a long time to put it together, but find a mentor, find somebody who can help you with it. Talk with your professors, but definitely not a waste of time ever. So let me see what we have coming in here.
Time for one quick question, and then we might have to wrap it up.
Okay.
I think, yeah, let's do your question.
I was just wondering how this works in terms for international students. Am I allowed to work on projects and get paid for that?
Did you hear the question?
Not exactly,
A
no.
little quiet. But he was talking about for international students. Is he also able to work on projects and get paid or get royalties and those kind of things in the
Only
US?
if you have the right visa to work. And that's really going to come down to your visa status. If you've got a visa that allows you to work and make money, then you're good. If you don't, then you don't want to mess with that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
You can get more. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, another one.
Can you talk about publishing in terms of film scoring? Like, is it better to be your own publisher or to have a publisher that is it?
It's best for you to be your own publisher. Absolutely. Self-publish, because you're creating the scores. And that's a source of revenue for the public performances. So you definitely want to have your own publishing company. Make sure that you sign up with a PRO. When you finish a score, it's the film production company that's going to file the cue sheet with your PRO. You would provide that information, in your contract. They would have it, they would file it. You always want to follow up, make sure they did their job and they filed it. But it gets filed as cue sheet for such and such film. And then behind the scenes, they're, assessing everything. So yeah, absolutely have a publishing company.
And then the last question there in the chat.
Okay. When owning the copyright to your recordings, do you need to check with directors, producers on release dates for the music? If they know what they're doing, they're going to have a lot of language in there about the timing of the release so that it matches up with their marketing efforts and all of that. If they don't know what they're doing, then you're going to decide. But as a courtesy, we always have it that we stay in communication with the film company and try to have the soundtrack be released at a time that helps to promote the film, because that's goes to reputation and it's a nice and the right thing to do. But yeah, there should definitely be communication, and it's just going to depend who you're working with, how many requirements are going to have on that.
All right, I think we are good. Thank you for covering so many different topics in a short amount of time. Hopefully we all learned a little bit. And again, especially if you are first or second semester or even third semester, really look into taking some business classes, because all of the faculty here or Valerie will be able to go in more depth and cover a few more things thoroughly than we did here today. So hopefully this got to whet your appetite for music business. But with that, we'll wrap things up and we'll say goodbye to Valerie.
Thank you all. You had great questions, and I hope to see you in some of my classes in the future, or at least someone's business classes. Good luck all.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.